We are so excited to have connection coders Mark and Teresa Lubovich of Paulsbo Tutoring on our podcast today. As kids are starting to prep to go back to school, we know parents are thinking about how they are growing academically, whether they're at home or in the classroom. Mark and Teresa wanted to share the huge impact they have seen when applying the connection codes in a learning environment. Teresa grew up and completed her high school traveling internationally on the largest non-governmental hospital ship in the world, with the Mercy ships. While homeschooling her own teens, a tutoring business began around her kitchen table when a local family asked for help. It wasn't long before families joined in and more tutors were needed, until today, where they nearly have 20 on staff at Paulsbo Tutoring, including Teresa and her husband Mark. The international travel of those early years taught Teresa how connected we all really are, and how our modern culture and lifestyle doesn't honor this deep truth. This little nugget led to the discovery of one of the biggest keys to her students' breakthroughs. Many students have no real sense of community or connection and carry a heavy emotional load that impacts their ability to progress in learning and in life. This commitment to serving the deeper needs underneath learning challenges fueled their motto and focus of the business: connection before content. After retirement, Mark enthusiastically joined the team, and now he and Teresa operate Paulsbo Tutoring together. The agency serves K-12 students, providing foundational assessments and academic support, test prep for ACT and SAT, and also support for adult students going back to school. The newest addition is an exciting program called the AMPS that builds a missing processing and memory skills that impact learning and transforms students' abilities in as little as 15 weeks. The agency offers tutoring in person locally and online across the U.S. Teresa mentioned in an email something that Dr. Glenn says: intense emotion shuts down cognition, and we see that in our business. Students often arrive to their sessions with big emotions. By approaching sessions with connection first, we help students' cognition come back online, and then we effectively support their academics. Win, win, win. So that's where we're headed today. We're talking about students going back to school and helping support their cognition coming back. Welcome to the Connection Codes. This is the podcast where we break open our emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tara Wages, and joining me is marriage and family therapist and clinical sexologist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife, Phyllis. Together, they founded the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we're so glad you're here.
Hello, world.
Hi, friends. Well, we are super excited to have friends on the podcast with us today, all the way from Seattle, Washington. So welcome. And we just want you guys to tell us just who you are and how you came to find the connection codes.
I think that's your story.
We were trying to remember when we first heard of y'all, and I think it was through Instagram, and it was through somebody giving a testimonial of having done it. And because the model of our business is connection before content, my antenna went up right away. And I was like, I need to know what this is. And so we were in a coffee shop, we'd gone away, and I said, we need to check this out. So we listened to something you guys had posted on Instagram talking about the wheel, I think. And it piqued both of our curiosity enough that we signed up and bought the first course. And that was probably a year and a half ago, maybe, or 2 years.
It was a year and a half ago.
Yeah. And we've bought everything since. We've bought them all. And then we got some session time with you, Dr. Glenn, because we were stuck and had some sessions. So that was kind of the very, very beginning. But we're a blended family. We have 3 kids that are grown, and now we're just the 2 of us, but we run our business out of our home. Our office is here. And so our life together is very much involved in day-to-day logistics of running a business. And the connection codes are definitely part of what's shifted pretty significantly for us.
Okay, so but can you go back and like tell us your name, like your
Oh.
your life history, not all of it, but just an overview?
That,
Oh,
go ahead.
well, my name is Mark and this is Teresa. And we do live in the great state of Washington in the Seattle area and in a suburb of Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
you can see behind you there. This is a pretty amazing
Yeah, for those who
view.
are
I just
not
thought it was
just
a
listening.
computer
Yeah.
screen thing, but apparently that's real. So
It is real.
It's a little background.
We've been married for 16 years this
Mhm.
year.
Cool.
Our kids are all grown and gone, and we have 2 grandkids, 10 and 6.
Mhm.
And
fun.
yeah,
Wow, I love
doing
that.
doing the life.
Yes.
Yeah. So I love that, Mark and Teresa, just the idea that you guys work together. So I know that I want to emphasize that because I think sometimes for our listeners, it's really great to go, okay, wow, they're using these tools. Matter of fact, you originally even got interested because of what you do and heard okay, well, we're all about connection. So connection codes, let's see what that's all about. And it piqued your curiosity. And then, of course, you guys have taken it not just into your business, but you've taken it into your marriage as well. So maybe you could give a little bit of both sides. Like, how do you see it helping your business? And then, of course, tell us about how it has affected your marriage.
Can I go ahead and
Yeah,
speak
I
to
think
that?
you need to
Okay.
speak.
This has been my business for many, many years, and now it's our business. And Mark joined the team about 5 or 6 years ago after retiring from an electrical contracting career.
Mhm.
And now he tutors math. We do tutoring of all kinds. But the business side of my work has always been a little bit outside the traditional model, where typically you would meet a tutor at a Starbucks and bang out your math homework and off you'd go. And my work and my heart has always been to connect with the student first and make sure that we build trust and rapport so that we can do the work, because students bring so much to the table that has nothing to do with their homework.
Wow.
It has to do with the parent that just passed away and or is on long-term deployment or has a relative in the hospital or is being bullied. I mean, there's a million things we can think of that fill up their backpack that has nothing to do with their papers.
Wow.
So my model has always been a little outside the box, which is a bit of a lonely experience. But it's also the most effective. We have turnarounds so quickly because of the connection. So when we worked on your course, I was like, you were totally speaking my
gosh,
language. And
yeah.
we were like, yes, aha, all the way through. Like, so now we've incorporated that in our training with our team and how they're communicating with kids and developing good, healthy connections that are safe, because there's so much going on. Even in the parking lot, getting out of the car, they're getting yelled at, get in the office, like whatever. And they come in all just dysregulated. Like it's
Wow.
really a challenge to just then turn left and start your homework. Like it's not very effective.
Mhm.
So we've been training the team on how to do not the wheel specifically with our students. I think that might be a little bit too vulnerable, too fast for them, but really using the language around their emotions and naming things for them. And then we use that verbiage in our notes home to our families. You know, we have so much joy that Johnny's doing so great in X, Y, or Z, or we're really sad to learn that the puppy passed away or whatever, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah. Wow.
And making those connections with the parents too. So it's not just
Yeah.
session time, it's parent time, because we're really caring for the whole family. So your language around this has really just helped us exponentially leap forward into what we were already doing and finding was effective.
Yeah.
Well, I love that because to me it emphasizes, often people ask us, well, what if, you know, my partner won't do this with me? And we try to emphasize that these tools changes everything for within yourself. And so it's like you using the language or your other coaches using the language with the kids and their families. The people on the other end don't even have to understand it, but it connects, right? It's so powerful in just how that is. It's like a universal language.
Yes.
People understand the word joy. They understand the word sad. And it's so clear that also it activates that region of their brain. So
Yes.
you using the language for someone else without them even knowing about the connection codes works because it activates their brain,
Yeah,
which
it's just a
is
human
really
condition.
powerful. Yeah.
And, you know, Mark and Teresa, we've talked about this a bit previously. I mean, you're just brilliant, way pre-connection codes that you recognize that if we don't connect with these kids, we're swimming upstream. I mean, it is,
Right.
and it's not that you couldn't just, what do you call that, muscle through, you know, tutoring them, teaching them. But, you know, the connection codes protocol is intense emotion shuts down cognition, unprocessed emotion hinders cognition. So these kids are operating as dumber versions of themselves, not because they're dumb, but because they're human. And they come in here flooded for their tutoring session. Forget trying to teach them math at least for the first 5-10 minutes. You're not going to be able to, and again, you could muscle through and you know, ramrod some tutoring, but you are really working against yourself. It sounds like you got that a long time ago, Teresa.
I just feel like I can't nod enough. My head's just like, yeah.
In agreement.
The other piece that you teach in the course, and I'm assuming your listeners are listening to those courses because this is like a highlight reel,
Yes.
is the asking what's happened or what's happening. It's a really beautiful way that we start to investigate with the student what's going on, why the stuff isn't finished that they were supposed to do, or what happened with the homework, and take out the accusation. There's no why questions. There's always pursuit, you know, tell me the story, what's happened here, or what are you feeling? So, and we get the story that way. We find out. And if they can process that with the tutor or with me, whoever they're working with, then it gives more bandwidth to actually do the work. It's pretty spectacular. So yeah, that's the business side. You want to add anything to that before we jump into the marriage side?
I think we follow the energy. So when a student comes in and sits down, we immediately look to see what's going on, or we try to identify what's going on in their head. And there's times where we don't do tutoring. We try, but you can't do it. So you just have to work with what they bring to the tutoring table.
Wow.
So there's times where I had a student that came in 7th grade, and his father had just passed away from COVID. We didn't get started very quickly into the math portion of this. We got into the life portion, and it took him a while before he discussed his dad. There was tears, and we just walked through that, and all of a sudden he took off, and things changed for him. So you know, the parents drop them off with the idea that they really want them to the math or what is being tutored to be moving along quickly, and it just doesn't always work that way. So the surprises happen in our office, and then they go home, and things seem to start changing there. And they can't all, the parents don't always identify why.
And sometimes they say, we're not arguing anymore, or thanks for giving us our kid back. Like those kind of words, I think are directly related to giving them space to feel what they're feeling and talk about it, and then get to their work, right? So
that's
pretty
amazing.
powerful.
Yeah, you know, research came out, you may have heard us talk about this about, I think a year or so ago. And one of the conclusions of the project was we should tell people to come to work at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and tell them to spend the morning connecting, you know, processing through what's happening with them. And they will get more done from 1 to 5 than they've been getting done from 8 to 5. And the research is pretty consistent that people are operating about a 36% capacity. So we're paying people for a full-time job, and they're giving about a third, not because they're bad people, not because they're trying to do a third. They're just so flooded. And you think about it, if you know, they show up for work and the freaking office is on fire, what do you think they're going to get done today? It's like, oh, just get busy. Come on, be productive. The office is on fire. They're not going to get anything done. Well, the exact same emotion, the exact same experience is happening in their psyche. And we're saying, come on, be productive, get more done. No, their life is on fire. And, you know, once we get that, it's like, oh, okay, that's the reason they're operating at a 36% capacity, because they're overwhelmed. And they're just one psyche. They're just one person. And you can't compartmentalize that. You hear people say that a lot. It's like, oh, just compartmentalize it. Not a thing. Cannot be done.
That is our experience too. They definitely need space. And it doesn't have to be a really catastrophic life event like we
Oh,
were just
absolutely.
deciding. It's just life and lots of things going on and lots of balls in the air, and trying to settle down and actually be productive is it takes a bit of time for anybody, not just
Yeah.
a student. Like that's
Well,
really,
it's interesting. Even one of the stories you kind of shared was the kid gets dropped off and the parent is yelling,
Mm.
hurry up, get in there. And you're like, wow, right there. Just
Yep.
that one interaction is enough to dysregulate
Yep.
a child so that they walk in, they've lost so much identity. They're just, whether it's hurt or shame, I mean, sadness, it's like they're sitting in that in such a heavy way
Mhm.
that if you try to jump right into a math lesson, they're not even able to think clearly because they're so flooded. And so it's beautiful to have the tools to help them get regulated, and simply by saying, so what's happening, and
Yeah.
giving them that space and following that energy
Yeah.
is so incredible. And often we've said we wish we could get this tool into every teacher's hand in the world, so that they could actually help their students get to the place where they can learn.
yes.
And,
Yeah, we want more parents to know too,
Yes.
what's
Oh, yeah.
causing so much. There's such a simple, this is so simple.
Yes.
And it's so easy to do that they could be doing it and giving their kids a much better emotional footing for life, not just what they're coming to us for. So yeah, we're all about trying to spread this message.
Spread your word.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, one of the things we always emphasize is we're the founders of the connection codes. We discovered it. We are not the inventors. We're not the creators. This existed long before we were born, because it's just a human condition. This has always been true. And our dream very much is that the connection codes as an organization exist long after we're gone, because we're really old. So we're counting down the days. Because it's the human condition, and it has nothing to do with Phyllis and Glenn. We're thrilled and delighted and have a ton of joy just getting to do this. But this is what the world needs to get this, because we got lost. I don't even know. I haven't studied that enough to figure out sociologically what happened, but we got so lost as far as knowing. And just like that, these parents, I mean, I don't know all of your clients' parents, obviously, but I assume they want their children to succeed, and they are aggressively working for their failure. They're yelling at the child to hurry up so they can get to the tutoring session on time. And what the parent is conveying is, fail. I want you to fail. I want you to struggle. I want you to waste this time tutoring that I'm paying for. So there. It's like, well, they don't realize they're doing that. They have no idea that they're completely lost and actually working to the detriment of their child and themselves. And they just don't know. And they're not doing that because they're bad or mean or wrong. They just don't know. They're not clear on what's happening yet. So
Very true.
cool.
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually have one student that is failing in school. She came in, we were doing math. She's 10th grade. And at one point, it just wasn't working with the tutor, with the math portion of it. And I contacted the mom, and we came to the conclusion, and this is a really good mom, we decided that we needed to change what was going on in her life now and look forward 20 years. And so all of the tutoring is now around subtly the connection codes and shifting the direction in her viewpoint of the world. And it's working. And we don't do math. We do that. We do it in other programs, but it's working very well. And that's just, something that's worked well here.
Wow, that's amazing. Love that so much.
Okay, biggest takeaways from the connection codes. What struck you the most? What stuck with you the most? We've already touched that a little bit, but what specifically?
For me, I think it really gives me the view or the inside world of Teresa during the daytime. At the end of the day, I can see know what her fears are, what she was angry at. I thought she was perfect. So we go to the end of the day and we're going through these. I can see her world, her day, and I can step into it more closely. She came out of her office one day and we did one of the emotions on the wheel only. She had just gotten off the phone and she said, that phone call made me afraid. And it was like that aha moment.
Mm.
I could step in and get a feeling for what it's like for
Wow.
her to be on some of the phone calls. And that was an incredible moment.
Mm.
If one thing, that was it.
Yeah.
I get to open the door and look in.
That's true. I think
Yeah.
because we work together, you guys work together too. There's a loneliness that's,
Hmm.
even though we're in the same space, we're busy and there's a lot of activity. And so you talk about in one of your videos, the part that really impacted me was when you talked about, Phyllis, you put your hand like on the back of Glenn's neck when
Yeah.
you walk by or
Yes.
something like that. And I started doing that in the office when he was in between sessions or something. And he like turned into a little puddle, and it was an instant, easy, simple thing to do that connected us. And then we've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and you talked about on one of them about the little happy emojis that are underneath the skin when that happens. And so that's been a really easy way for us to connect for a quick couple seconds in the middle of the day, in between all the activity.
Wow.
And then typically we do the wheel in the evening, and find out about the rest of the day, because we just haven't had time to sit and do that earlier. And so that's probably been my biggest, quickest takeaway that we just love to do now, every now and then.
Wow.
And just to notice more that actually really feeds him and really
Yeah.
is a good, simple thing for me to do. And then he does the same to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're not alone. We're not isolated. We're not doing this whole thing by ourselves. There's that connection of being together on the journey, which is lovely.
The connection codes by using the 8 different emotions, I've really been able to identify those emotions. And during the day, Teresa will walk through the room and go back into her office, and I'll think to myself, I'm lonely. Sad, because she is busy in her space, I'm busy in mine, and we didn't have a chance to connect. And I can identify that emotion because of the connection wheel at the end of the day. And that, for me, that's really helpful to be able to differentiate them all, and they don't all get stuck together as one glob that doesn't feel good. So for me, that's been really helpful.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
Love that.
One of the things I say often is that, it's not magic fairy dust, but that's pretty close. And my personal opinion is that women have more power than men do. Men are pretty easy, pretty cheap. And, Teresa, when you do that with Mark, and again, it can be vice versa, but typically, just based on my experience, when a woman does that for a man, you're cheating, because you have just activated his pleasure center like crazy. You literally have produced oxytocin in his brain. Oxytocin is a pain and a fear stabilizer. It kind of doesn't necessarily X them out, but pretty close. So you're cheating. It's like, wait, you get that much out of, you just literally touch the back of his neck? That's not fair. That's you made 1 unit of effort and you got 25 I don't know what you call that, units of response or something, but it's true. And the power of compassionate touch, there's a ton of research on that. It's just ridiculous. And again, it's true for females as well, but I think the female has more power in that. That's certainly what we experience. And Phyllis likes my touch, but it is not as powerful as her touch. To me, it doesn't have the same effect.
Well, that's interesting
The
because
same level of effect.
I guess we
should
could
say.
almost go down a rabbit hole on that one, because I would be curious to understand the science behind that.
Yeah.
Because I think if it activates for Mark and he becomes a puddle, and you mentioned like the oxytocin, that it fires that, it releases that.
Yeah.
And did you mention a number like 25 or something, which you might have just made up
I just made that up. Yes.
that number? But I'm just so curious as to if it has the same effect on me, and if it doesn't, what is the factor? And I wonder, because it's interesting. I know we've talked about this some when we're on a podcast and Tira is with us, that there is a shield for her. Like if I touch Tira's arm, there is a more positive experience than if a man touches her arm. And so I don't know if there are factors that change that for us. I know that's a really interesting study. And who do you often quote with that study of the power of the touch?
Well, Dr. Jim Cohn.
Okay, so it is
the
Dr.
brilliant
Cohn's work.
researcher with that.
And I remember reading a bunch of his stuff where, I mean, even the experiments that they did was very interesting. You know, they would go to a big city, and if you touch someone and then ask them directions, they're much more likely to respond to you than if you just walk up and stand there and say, "Can you give me directions?" And when I was reading this research, we were downtown Nashville where we live, and we were going to a symphony concert, and we were in the parking garage, and we encountered two older ladies who were obviously lost. And I wanted to help them. And I remember walking up to them, and I probably do this naturally anyway, but I touched one of them and I said, "Are you ladies lost?" And I just went into, because they seem hesitant to trust me, which I get that, in a parking garage at night. But I said, "Are you ladies going to the symphony?" And they just lit up and they said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, we are too. Would you want to follow us to the symphony?" And they said yes. But it was a really sweet encounter. But in my mind, I was going through that idea of, I'm going to touch her to kind of that, to give her body the oxytocin and to that positive energy. And I think that it's just interesting how much I think we can miss on this. And I wonder if at times for women, if they're in a, married, they have a partner, and the only time he's touching is when he's interested in sex. And so then it becomes instead of a positive, it becomes a negative. And so then there is that shield, almost that trauma response of the oxytocin isn't released, as in when, and so, I know that for us, it's interesting. We were in a situation just this week, and they were setting up cameras and they were setting up microphones, and the one person said to the other, "Oh, they like to sit really close together." And I thought, okay, first of all, I love that is understood. And it's true. Even when we speak out at events, we always say, however you set us up on the stage, we want to be able to touch each other. And I just think for us, there is such a powerful security in that. Like it's interesting, because I do think when I touch the back of your neck, your oxytocin
it's absurd. I mean, like, literally my whole body.
Yeah, he's doing it right now. He starts to melt right here.
See it.
Well, I mean, it just is amazing to me what an incredibly cheap prescription. I
Yeah,
mean, we are
yeah.
a prescription-oriented society. The pharmaceutical industry is multi billions. I'm thinking there's so many free prescriptions we can have for you just to touch me, and literally I feel it throughout my body. I don't know. It's remarkable.
Yeah, but I think it's important to know that it is as much a prescription for me. And I think if you are listening and you're going, "Yeah, well, I don't like to be touched," to kind of want to get to the bottom of that. What's happening for you with that? Because scientifically, it is a very powerful tool and a very powerful, and there's been so much study done on it, how even our cells are rejuvenated through the touch of another person. And so if you are missing that in your life, to figure out what it is that's stopping you. I know my mom, until she died at 90, she lived alone, and her, like, there's so much loneliness that widows or widowers experience. And older people in general, it's like, how much are they being touched? And I remember when I would visit my mom, I loved holding her hands, and they were, they were so soft. And, but I was also so aware of the importance of the need that she had to be touched. And I was always so conscious of that. And, it's interesting. Glenn's mom lives with us, and she's 95, and it's, she counts on it as security. Like when she's out with us, she always wants one of us to be nearby, and she's going to be touching us, and vice versa. Like she likes for us to help her in that way. And she's super independent. I mean, she still drives, she does her thing. She goes to the Y every day and works out. So she's totally capable of getting from point A to point B all by herself. But when we're together, she loves the human touch, which totally makes sense. And so I love that you guys, kind of circling back to you guys, that working together all day to make sure that you have those quick seconds. I love that you even said that, Teresa, that you may not even have time for words to be exchanged, but you have the few seconds as you pass each other to just touch. And that is really powerful. I love that.
Yeah. Wow. So good. Okay. So where do you connect the best, and where do you miss the worst?
I could do miss the worst. We were just talking about it today. Usually if we're tired, it doesn't go well. And that's really easy. If we've had a really long day, then connecting is harder, which I think is why the touch part during the day or some other way of seeing each other for a minute is really valuable. Do you want to do when we connect the best? Trying to think when we do.
I think really we connect the best when we use the connection codes.
When we use the wheel.
Can be the wheel. When we use the wheel, it really opens that door for me, and I truly see my wife.
I love that. So when you are tired, like Teresa, are you able to say in the moment, even, are you aware of it? Like, are you able to say what's happening for you in that moment?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we just had that last night, and Mark was really tired, and he was like, this morning, he's like, I'm sad we didn't connect last night because I was so tired. And we're learning quickly to use the words from the wheel to even just discuss what's happening in the moment. Like that's been a big shift in our marriage, which has been really good.
Yeah. And even to be able to say the sadness of the body, the brain scans show that tiredness is a sadness. It looks the same. We literally can't differentiate them. When someone says they feel sad about, whatever, missing this event they wanted to go to, or when they say that they're tired, the brain activates the same. And to be able to use that terminology to say, oh, sad, 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 Mark goes, oh, what's happening with sad? What am I missing? Just my body. I'm just tired. I mean, I'm worn out, big day, joy about the day. It was good. It was productive, but I'm about maxed out. To be able to label that as the core emotion. And it's just the last couple of years that we even realized that in studying brain scans and learning it, to be able to say that to Phyllis. I'm always amazed, and I'm not talking about you'll never be tired again, but I'm always amazed at what happens to my physical body when I use that terminology. I actually feel more energized. And even in the morning, there are times we wake up in the morning and Phyllis will go, oh, sad. And I'm like, oh, what's happening with sad? Well, I'm busy. He goes, well, I didn't sleep well last night. That my psyche was going crazy and thinking about something that happened yesterday, and I didn't process it all the way through before I went to sleep. And, my body's sad now. And that actually energizes her, just the processing of that.
And it creates a tenderness between us, and all of everybody who's doing this, that's actually beautiful. And so, I don't know, it's very moving to me that our hearts are toward each other, not away or doing our own thing. We're very much attentive.
Yeah, I could never imagine going back to the pre-wheel days. It's just two different ships, going about their days, and every once in a while they'll bump into each other, sometimes collisions. And so this is so different. We're in the same boat now, not two different.
Yeah,
and so that's the difference.
That's true.
I love it. Yeah.
It's a small boat, by the way.
We just did a little plug here for you guys. We did do the late night course, and because we felt like we were stuck, and then we met with you, Glenn, like 6 times, and it also was like exponentially better on every level. And so I feel like we've been from the ground up when your first webinar, before you guys redid all the things, to now, and just we're reaping the benefits of the research and the work that you guys have done. So thank you for all that.
I love that. Yeah,
So
thank you for
cool.
mentioning that, and just plugging even the late night masterclass, and realizing, because we do hear from people who go, "Oh yeah, we're going through it, but we're stuck, or it's causing conflict," and it's like, yeah, it's an incredibly vulnerable topic, and it can bring up painful past scenarios, and it's like you're kind of going into, in a sense, major surgery. You've been ignoring that bad whatever, knee forever, and now you're finally going, okay, I've got to do something about it. And it's a change of that nature. To really face some things can be painful till you get to the other side. And I love that you guys just decided, you know what, we're not going to just stay stuck. We're not going to just throw it out. We're actually going to get some help and get sessions with Glenn to break this down and to figure out where it is that we're getting stuck, or how to work through getting stuck. So
worth it.
Yes.
So terrifying, very much a fear thing on the wheel, but lots of joy now.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Well, we all need, your whole business is set up because people need coaching. People need help, whatever the subject is. Math. Well, math's been around for a while. So just tell these kids just to learn it. Everybody else is learning it, just learn it. Well, no, they need a little bit of help, a little bit of coaching, some leading, some nudging. And that's true for us adults as well, that we don't outgrow that. And the opposite of that is what we call psychological isolation, where nobody knows what's happening with me. Well, I'm incapable of living as an island. I don't know if you remember that Paul Simon song, "I'm a rock, I'm an island." What does it say? A rock doesn't. You should know that, Mark. What's the lyrics? An island doesn't cry.
Maybe he's a math tutor,
Well, yeah,
not music.
it's Paul Simon, for goodness sake. Not that I can remember it, but anyway.
Thank you, Phyllis.
But we're not designed to live in isolation. And it doesn't mean you can't be successful at something, but you will not be successful overall in life if you're living as an island. If you're living in isolation, it can't be done. So, well, that's good. So, any other big misses or connecting points for the two of you?
Maybe there's one other thing that you talk about in the basic or the foundations course around measuring your fear. How many feet of fear, or how many, we even do that with how much joy we're feeling. That's just a good measure. I have found in my work to help students identify what's going on, to have them give me a measure of 1 to 10 or 1 to whatever. I really liked that practical piece, because I'm super practical and I'm like, how does this actually work? And we have done that many times. And just finding out the fear is maybe 10 feet, and I thought for him it might be 40 feet, is like, oh, okay, like I understand better and I can lean into that. Or if it is 43 feet, or we're going to go on a trip and we are like, we have 43 feet of joy, we're flying out today. Like, it just is a really good adjective kind of to better happening. Yeah, I love that part that you guys do that. So I think that's one
I think it's really nice to use with joy as well.
I
think different levels of joy, and there's some days where the joy is just really high. And there's other days where I see the joy, but it just isn't quite as good some days as others.
You might not have intended that for joy, but we use it for joy.
No, I love that. I do love that, because I think sometimes I love that you even just said it's like an adjective, it's just this added piece that I think sometimes can be really fun, even for yourself. Like what's happening with me when it comes to joy? Am I at 2 feet, or am I really experiencing higher amounts of joy? And if I'm not, okay, what's happening with that? And can I lean into that to figure out where to gain that. Because I know
Yeah.
for me, being a very task-oriented person, I don't often give myself permission to slow down enough to have fun or to figure out what would be fun. I'm more like, no, I shouldn't be doing that. I should instead get these emails sent, or like there's always more to do. And so I love that idea of going, okay, well then what level of joy have you experienced today? And to really lean into making sure that there are experiences that are higher in the amount of feet when it comes to joy. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it really tunes us into ourselves as an individual to realize that, okay, well, there's, whatever, 43, 40, 35 feet of joy. We have seen deer on our property. We've lived where we live for 10 years. We've seen deer 3 times. And there is at least a herd of 9 deer that live in the woods behind our house. And it drives me nuts. I don't know. And people have given me all these explanations and I'm like, no, these are just bad deer. They won't come out into our fields. So we can see them.
And we get advice too. Like people go, well, you need you need
We've
a
done
deer
everything.
feeder. And we're like,
Yeah.
we've done
I don't
that.
wanna
You
hear
need
about
this
it.
salt block. We've done that.
Yeah. So anyway, we're sitting in our sunroom the other day and I look out and I see 3 deer and I'm freaking out. I mean, it's 43 feet of joy. And, I start yelling and screaming and
it was quite entertaining, actually. I'd like to hear your version of the story, and then I'd like to tell my version of the story.
Well, some of our dearest friends live on the property with us. And so I run over to, and start banging on their door to get them to come out, which terrified the deer. And then the deer ran away. It was very sad. But I wanted them to share because I was so flooded with joy, I couldn't even think straight. And Phyllis is saying, get a picture. And I literally, I can't think of how to draw a picture. What do you mean by get a picture? I don't know what that means. I'm just so flooded with joy that I look ridiculous. Is that close?
Yeah, your version is pretty close. It was just kind of hilarious because it was early in the morning. So Glenn was still in his robe. And I don't know if I was or not, but I'm sitting in our sunroom. And so it's a little love seat. And he's across from me. And all of a sudden he looks out the back window. And he says, he doesn't say deer to, he doesn't tell me it's deer. He just says, get up and look. And so in however many seconds it takes me to get up off the couch, I am not thinking deer. I'm thinking something is killing something. Like I'm thinking I'm about to witness this horrible scene instead of these beautiful 3 doe going across the back of our property. And so then immediately I see the deer once I get, look, and I grab my phone to take a picture. But I also say, I don't know what I say to you, but what's hilarious to me is that he opens the door and I thought he was going to quietly get a better shot of the deer, like a picture. And instead he flies off the deck and starts running. And I'm just like in his robe. And I'm just like, where is he going? And it's so funny to me because he's hooting and hollering. And of course, immediately the deer scatter. I get barely a picture. I mean, I do enough that I can prove it to everyone we saw deer. But I just got laughing so hard. And I went outside then once they were gone. And I'm like yelling at him going, babe, they're gone. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then I think he came to his senses and realized that he was running around trying to find our friends, George and Pam. It was so funny.
I was a dumber version of myself.
It was hilarious. So, yes, his flood, 43 feet of joy, absolutely, over those deer. And it was really funny.
I think that helps people to realize that, intense emotion shuts down cognition, unprocessed emotion hinders cognition. That's true for joy. We all do dumb things. And again, this is a lighthearted one. But we all do dumb things. We make poor decisions because we're flooded with joy. Somebody goes and buys a car. They could never afford this car. They're so flooded with joy about this car. They buy this car. 6 months later, it's going to be repossessed. They're going to lose all this money because they didn't process the joy to go, ooh, joy, joy, joy about this car. But, oh, wait a minute. Hold on. A little fear there because, wait, I can't afford this car. What am I talking about? So, and to recognize that. So that's really good. Okay. What would you want people to know about the connection codes? What's the biggest thing that you'd want to convey?
Do it, learn it, dive in. It's so easy. I think the the default for so many is if it works, it must be complicated.
Hmm.
And it's not, it's so simple. And it takes practice. I think we didn't do it right for a while, but it's, it's a journey together. So I just think the investment in learning it is worth it. So I would just say, we have your website up on our website as a parent resource. Like, I just think everybody in the world needs to know.
Mm.
I think we're always telling people about it. And a lot of people are asking about our model and why it's different. And so then that leads into a natural conversation about you and what you're doing. So I just think, don't wait. There's nothing you don't gain anything by holding off on learning this. This is actually where it's at.
I love that so much.
So for me, you have to step through the fear. I was raised in a family where there weren't a lot of emotions ever discussed. It was kind of flat. So when I first started doing this, there was fear. I'm looking at the wheel going, what is this? What are these 8 words on here? And what am I supposed to do with them?
Mm.
Knew the end game was great. So for me, it was stepping in, going through the fear, doing the wheel, and it didn't take very long for all of a sudden it to become a safe place to share how I was feeling because of the way I set it up. And I stepped into it pretty quickly and made it a big change. And I pattern in my life from my childhood.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was big for me. You just got to step through the fear.
Yeah.
Love that so much.
It'll be different for everybody, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we always try to emphasize we're just pilgrims on the journey. Phyllis and I, we miss when we use the connection codes. We connect. When we don't, we don't. I feel like we should get a free pass because we wrote a book about it. But
You should. And your vulnerability, I think, in the whole story, your whole story, I am so just honor your work and what you've done to get where you are, and then share it. Like, it's not a small thing. You could have given up so easily and not gotten to where you are. I think that's the beauty of the draw for us, was that your vulnerability called it out in us too. Like, it's when you share, it makes it easier to share. So
wow, thank you
for that.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much with just being with us today. This is so fun. And we always end our podcast with the wheel, and we would love it if you guys, Mark and Teresa, would do the wheel for us today.
He pulled it off the fridge.
Yeah.
We have a little card.
Cool.
You want to go first?
Okay, I'm going to go back, I'm sad. I'm going to say that I was sad about last night being way tired, and I felt really disconnected and lonely. I really did. These are the 2 words I get a little confused by, shame and guilt. But I felt guilty because I was tired. And I felt shame because I wasn't there for her. I was a little angry about that. This was a big one for me because I don't like doing this. So I was angry about the fact that I was tired. It was a very long day. Didn't tell my body otherwise. It wasn't listening very well. And hurt. Wow. I have to think about that one. I had lots of joy. Actually, I have lots of joy right now doing this podcast with you. This has been a lot of fun. Going to hurt. Wow. I may be stuck on that one.
When's the last time you felt hurt?
Wow, I'm stuck.
When's a big time you felt hurt in your life?
Probably was a family member that rejected me.
Wow.
A couple months ago, family. Yeah, that would have been that. And that's pretty traumatic, but yes, there it is.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. I say to couples a lot, and for men more than women, Mark, what you just did put you in an upper echelon. There are not a high percentage of men in this culture that do what you just did, which you did it beautifully and smoothly. And, you know, of course, that's our dream, is that to get everybody doing this. So I just commend you. I'm honored that you would share that. Cool. Can you go, Teresa?
I had a lot of fear about doing the wheel on the podcast. If
Mm.
I'm honest. I was like, oh no. It's different to do that with Mark than to do it in front of somebody. So I had a lot of fear about that. I had a little bit of lonely yesterday. One of our kids was having surgery and not being able to be with them. And so instead of saying missing them, I always say now I'm lonely for them. And a little bit sad that the situation is what it is, and really hoping things turn around. I have a lot of joy meeting you and sharing what's changed for us. I feel like this is such a big shift for us that there's a lot of joy that we're not stuck anymore. I have a lot of anger that we waited so long to get started, right? So, but we're here. But I definitely felt anger about that, and probably guilty that we waited so long, even to call you, even after having done a year and a half of the program and then waiting so long to get started with actual sessions with you. So, and hurt, I think I was hurt that one of our families didn't understand what we were doing. And that happens sometimes when they don't really buy into it. They just want the cookie cutter thing. And so I think that's a pain experience for me, because I feel like they're missing the whole picture, and they're actually missing their student and not seeing them. So I have that's a pretty common wheel for me when I'm working with families. So that's a good one. I think I got them all: guilt and shame, anger, fear. Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
amazing.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your workday and being with us. So special.
Yeah. We're coming to Seattle at some point. We want to be with you.
Yes.
You do
come.
that, give us a call.
Come.
Yes.
I want to thank you personally, and I'm sure that Teresa would say this as well, that we really appreciate what you have brought into our world. And we're so happy to be able to be walking through your journey with each video, each podcast, and partnering with you and walking through this with you.
Yeah.
We feel kind of like there's a family.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah. Wow.
Lots of joy. 43 feet.
I love it.
Wow.
Well,
Thank
you're
you,
beautiful
guys.
people. Yeah. Really, really appreciate your time and just who you are and how you are. It's amazing. So that leads us to say, as we do every time, just like with Mark and Teresa, you need this.
You deserve this.
So
let's do this.
Wow, thank you so much to Mark and Teresa. I will say that schooling for my kids was something I did not anticipate going into parenthood, of how stressful it would be. And now realizing how much I need to be applying the connection codes before they even go to school, helping their brains to relax and piece itself back together so they can even approach learning is massive. If you're interested in learning more about what Mark and Teresa do and all that they offer as far as their attention, memory, and processing skills course and helping students transform their learning, you can find more information about them in our show notes and connect with them. They help people in person as well as online. So huge thanks to them. And as always, thank you so much for being here. It means the world when you show up each week to join us. And I hope this 3-week parenting series was helpful to all of you parents transitioning back into school. We do it every summer, but every single year it feels like there's a new layer of joy and fear as we approach the school year. So thank you for being here. We look forward to continuing to dive deep with you and connect more. As always, let's do this.